Hello and welcome to episode number 216. This is the Project Management Podcast at pm-podcast.com and I am Cornelius Fichtner. Very nice to have you with us. In 2001, 17 software developers met at a ski resort in Snowbird, Utah. They all faced the same problem: the need for an alternative to the slow-moving waterfall approach to improve their software development projects. And the Agile model for software development was born. So how does this innovation apply to new product development in the consumer goods industry? The benefits of the Agile software development process: increased speed to market, reduced cost, enhanced focus, and minimized wasted time in development, apply to any development organization, whether the end result is a consumer product or software application. These gains are especially important in today's economic climate, where development budgets are constrained, competition is fierce, and expectation from both senior leaders and consumers have greatly increased. But how do we do it? Well, to explore how to best do this, I invited Matt Priest from Calypso onto the program, and he will give us his insights on the topics. He'll not only answer all my questions, but also introduce us to the 3 simple Agile principles that we should be using when developing new consumer goods, which are: engage the customer early, collaborate iteratively throughout the development process, and institute a closed-loop learning process. And now, just build it, because if you build it, they might just come. Enjoy the interview.
Project Management Podcasts feature interview.
Today with Matt Priest, consultant at Calypso.
Hello, Matt, and welcome to the Project Management Podcast.
Thanks, Cornelius.
Out of all the topics out there, what made you choose to write about the Agile development process and how it relates to the consumer goods industry?
I was attending a user conference for one of our software alliance partners, and they began talking about how they use the Agile software development model to bring out the new modules and the new iterations of their users or their software. And as I was hearing this, I began to think of all the correlations between the software development model and the way in which consumer goods are developed. So after a little bit of research and a little bit of thought about some of the clients I'd worked with, I realized that this is a way in which all consumer goods companies should be designing, testing, and iterating their new innovation products before they get to market.
Can you briefly give us sort of an overview of the Agile software development process, how it works?
The Agile methodology is built on the premise of adapting to the needs of your consumer and the market, and constantly ensuring that the product requirements are fresh. So the Agile method starts by identifying the initial requirements and doing that in conjunction with the end user, or in the case of consumer goods companies, your actual consumer. And then they quickly build a prototype, and then test that right back with the consumers to see if it meets the requirements, and then kind of continue this build, test, and iterate process until their final product is built.
All right, so what's the story behind the integration of this approach into the consumer goods industry? I mean, when and how did you realize its value?
We were working with a client in the consumer goods industry and realized that the way in which they build and develop and test their consumer messaging was really quite stagnant. They would go to the market and kind of develop some white space or see a new technology. I quickly write up some consumer messaging, and then that was it. That was their tagline or their messaging for the product. We realized that the best way to get buy-in from your consumers for the marketing and the messaging you're using is to kind of develop that in conjunction with them. So find out what the needs and requirements are, and you have your prototype product, but also you have to get the messaging right on that product as well, and then test that with the consumers to make sure it's resonating, to make sure that's the benefit statements you're using are things that are going to capture their attention and get them to buy your new product.
And by messaging, you're talking marketing message or description of the product?
Yeah, most consumer products have a few elements of them in their kind of marketing description or their marketing pitch. It's the what's the current state of the market or the accepted consumer belief? What is the current problem state your consumers are facing? And then on your new product that you're developing, what are the benefit statements behind that and the benefit capture? And then also, what is the reason to believe that this new product will solve your previous needs or wants from where the market was lacking in the beginning? So you take these marketing messages that you're crafting that are tagged to your prototype, and you quickly kind of do some reiteration with your consumers to find out if the way in which you're pitching and marketing this product is actually going to resonate with them and get them to believe in your product. So bringing the consumer in as kind of part of your test case before you go to market will ensure that they are believing in this from the beginning.
Right. So the basis for our interview here is an article that you wrote on the Calypso, your company's website, titled Agile Development Models for Consumer Goods, Not Just for Software Anymore. And in this article, you talk a lot about the many benefits that the Agile software development process has. And I would appreciate it if you could enumerate a bit on this and discuss a little bit, speed to market, reduce cost, enhanced focus, these kind of areas.
Yeah, what we see a lot of times is with this messaging, and it not being crafted correctly, or it's not doesn't match up to the prototype of the product. A lot of companies, the product may be really good, but the actual consumers just don't believe it or don't buy into it. So the product gets put back into development, and they spend a lot more time either thinking it's the product's problem when really a lot of times it's the messaging's problem, or it's just not a good match on those. So this kind of redevelop and reiteration process that they go through, it just takes a long time to go from end to end each time. But by building in the agile development methodologies where you're constantly in review with your consumers and constantly checking the requirements and the needs to make sure they haven't changed, you'll understand what the consumer really wants, be able to craft your messaging and your product to meet their needs from the beginning. And with you have quick wins, and you also have your quick losses. So the products that you develop that simply fail and don't meet the needs of your consumers will be done away with very quickly, and you'll continue to build on your successes to make the ultimate product.
When you talk about your consumers, are you talking about creating focus groups or using beta testers, or how do you actually get the feedback? Because you've got to get the product into the hand of an actual consumer.
Right. Most of the clients we work with do both a combination of qualitative and quantitative research on this. So the qualitative is, just like you said, focus groups or consumer communities to where you're testing these products both from a prototype standpoint, is the product actually working? And then also from a messaging or a concept board standpoint, to would you buy this concept if you heard this campaign or you saw this product on the shelf and saw the packaging that it's in? So that's the qualitative standpoint. And then the quantitative standpoint is there's several marketing research providers out there, like Nielsen and AccuPoll and the like, that will do large base testing on these products and the concepts to determine how many people out of a given population set of a certain type of consumer would buy the product.
Right. The process that you go through is key as you are developing a new consumer goods. And in your article, you talk about 3 simple principles that you should apply when you're developing this process for yourself. Could you talk about these 3 principles here a little bit?
The model is really quite simple. I mean, the first is knowing what your consumers want. So when you're developing new products, don't just develop a product on a whim based on some new technology or fiber or ingredient you can use. Actually know what your consumers want and need and what's missing in the marketplace. So bring them in as part of your development cycle. And so after you know that, that's part one. Part two is involve them in the development of your products and the product messaging. Like we were talking about earlier, use them as your focus groups or your community of users, and have them test the product from a prototype standpoint, and also get involved with the messaging. What does this resonate with your core consumer? And the last part is you want to test early and often. So from the beginning, once you have your basic prototype and messaging up, test that, make sure that resonates with the consumers. And if it doesn't, start working to change it. You need to ultimately have a product that functionally works and is messaged correctly to where your core consumer wants to buy it. So know what your consumers want, involve them in development, and then test with them early and often are the 3 simple steps in the process.
But wouldn't this process also help you to stay on top of your competition?
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the requirements and knowing what the consumers want. So that basic, what does the market need? if you start developing against that and somewhere during your development cycle, one of your key competitors comes up with a product that solves that need in the marketplace, then your product is kind of stagnant or unnecessary. And the original revenue goals you thought you were going to have will be severely shrunk because the marketplace has already been taken by a new product.
All right, let's try and compare the old way of doing it to the new suggested way using the agile model that you have. So, when developing a new product today, what are the common mistakes that most companies usually make that can lead to failure?
I think there's two. There's one that's the stagnant requirements. So a lot of companies will just source the market one time, develop their list of requirements for a new product, and start developing. And that development cycle may take as short as 3 or 4 months, or could last 2 or 3 years until they actually have a new product that's built and launched into market. Well, sometime over the course of that time span, it's a very good chance that the requirements have changed. Consumer preferences change. Like you said, competition may have released a new product that's kind of eroding your market share, or just the mere fact that raw material prices have changed and your product won't have the same margins that it used to have. So without having a constant sourcing of the requirements from your consumers and the marketplace, you have the fear that your product may not win in market or may not reach the market the profit margins you'd like. The second biggest mistake I see is that companies are just afraid to take risk and to fail quickly. Part of the agile methodology from software is build a prototype and test it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but we'll learn what worked well and what didn't work. And so with the agile model, you take these risks and you take them quickly and you test them against your consumers to find out if that's a winning message, a winning product. And after a few quick iterations, the product has no bearing. You forego the investment and move on to the next, or you quickly make the changes you need to make to turn that into a winning product. So with the agile methodology in place, companies have to be willing to take the chance and willing to fail and fail quickly and make those changes.
All right. I've looked on your website, and when I click on the About Us page, it says Calypso helps companies deliver on the promise of innovation. So tell me, how does Calypso help your customers implement these ideas of, using the agile approaches in the development of consumer goods?
Sure. Calypso is a full service innovation strategy consulting firm. So we do anything from the very front end of innovation strategy setting all the way to the product launch execution. With the front end of innovation and this agile methodology for consumer goods, really we come in and help organizations understand everything that's in their front end of innovation processes, from their white space and kind of their strategy identification of where they want to be with a certain business unit or with the entire organization. And then from there, help them develop a streamlined approach to gather these requirements, ideation sessions, focus groups, whatever it may be, to help source your consumer base to come up with these requirements quickly and keep them fresh. And then also we've worked with companies in the past to develop a concept development model to where you're writing good concepts and building on the successes of past winning concepts. Best way to put that. So you take the winning models you've produced in the past and replicate them. Use what's good, the messaging that works well with your core consumers, and build that into your new models as well to keep it going forward. I think the biggest thing is having a closed loop results analysis process. So once you've developed your concepts and they're becoming in market products, what was the revenue goals and the margin goals you set, or distribution goals, and what did you assume your positive purchase intent would be, and comparing that to the actual results in market to determine, did we hit our revenue goals, did we hit our distribution goals? And it's not just comparing the numbers to get a yes or a no, but it's why did we achieve or not achieve the revenue goals we thought we would, or get the distribution and the buy-in from our consumer? What changed in the product's life cycle that inhibited or prohibited us from doing this, or why did we greatly outpace our goals? So by doing this analysis and determining where your company is, you actually have the ability to repeat the successes and try to mitigate the failures.
Right. So does that mean when you have new customers at the moment who are working on developing new consumer goods that you actually suggest to them that they use the agile approach now?
Yeah, we suggested to all our clients to do a quick iteration process to where you're not just on a development cycle that lasts a long period of time, but you're constantly at each point in that development process checking your product and checking your messaging with your consumers to determine if things have changed in the marketplace, or if you're just not developing a product that's really going to meet the needs. Because you might develop the world's greatest product, but if there's no consumer that wants to buy it to solve their needs, then you're not really going to get anything good for your organization.
Yeah. Have you noticed any real improvement by applying Agile here? I mean, is it cheaper to do? Is it faster to do? Does the product come out better?
I think that the companies we've worked with would say that the products have come out more aligned with what their consumers want, and then products that are more aligned with their consumers' needs will ultimately yield more revenue for the organization as a whole. And so being able to source your consumers and understand what they want and need in a new product is key to the innovation process. You can't start developing a new product without understanding what your consumers want. And so by having that knowledge on the front end just impacts the entire execution of new product development from the beginning all the way to the execution. By having the requirements, you're able to move through the gated development process more efficiently. You've got greater understanding of your marketplace so that your projections are more in line with what's the actual value that you're going to get from a new product. So all along the process, it just allows you to be more in sync with your consumer and get through the process with faster speed to market and an increased value for your new products.
All right, this all sounds like, a shining new future, and everybody is going to have to use Agile. So, critical question here. Is success guaranteed when you apply the Agile development model?
I think, in the inherent world of innovation, success is never guaranteed. Sometimes you just simply cannot find the right prototype to meet your consumers' requirements or needs, and sometimes the messaging is just not in line with what your core tenets for your corporation is. And sometimes the market just may not be ready, or that you cannot clearly communicate the value of the new innovation. And then other times the competition, still might beat you to the almighty consumer dollar. But if you've got the Agile model working properly in your organizations where you can develop, test, and respond quickly, you're able to take your winning products to market faster, and you allow the bad ideas or the ones that just simply don't resonate with your consumers to fail quickly, and your organization can move on without investing large amounts of time, energy, and money in this product, and then learning that it's a failure.
Okay. But when you apply the Agile model, is there anything that you can actually do wrong that will lead you to failure?
I think there's a point where you have to understand that the product isn't going to work with your consumers, or the messaging just needs to be completely redone. Companies will just get stuck on a particular project and say, we're going to make this work no matter what. And that's where you start spending the money and the time that's just unnecessary, over the top. You've got to be willing to let the bad ideas go, and you've got to let things go and move on to ones that actually can win.
Right. I mean, if I understood you right, so we have the iterative development process, we have the closed loop learning process. You get feedback from these processes, and the worst thing you can basically do is do not listen to this feedback. Just keep going.
That's right.
No, we don't believe what you're telling us. We think this is right.
Yeah, you've got to trust the consumer, because at the end of the day, they're the ones who are providing you with the revenue to invest back in these new products. So by not listening to the feedback you get, and there's some messaging that or feedback you'll get that says, oh yeah, we need to change this, and we'll have the product on track. But there's some feedback you get that says, the market's just not ready for this, or the consumer just doesn't want to buy this. And if that's the case, you need to allow your organization to move on and start working on the next big idea.
All right. On the other side, I asked you, what can you do to make it fail? Is there anything specific that you can do to make it work?
I think you just have to have an organization that buys in as this is the way in which we're going to develop. We're going to listen to our consumers, and we're going to believe that what they have to say is right. And we're going to look at what we've done in the past as part of our learning, our closed loop evaluation process, and say, here's the things that we did on our winning concepts that made them win in market and the reasons they were successful. And we need to replicate those and share those learnings throughout the organization, to where it's not just one project team did really well and that project team may continue to do really well, but that one project team influences their business unit, and that business unit influences the entire organization, to share these learnings to where they can reapply them across the different divisions of any corporate entity. And that'll allow your organization to continue to learn and continue to get better.
To close out the interview, everything so far has been a bit theoretical, talking about the process and how you do it. Let's put this into the real world here to close it out. Can you name any popular consumer goods companies that have used this agile approach and that are now reaping the benefits?
Yeah, Playtex Products, which is a leading manufacturer of personal care products. Some of their brands include Banana Boat, the Diaper Genie, and Woolite. They use the agile model to collaborate with their packaging producers to produce effectively packaged products that the market will not only accept, but also accept in a faster time period to develop retail display systems that are not only build brand awareness, but also that the packaging ensures all the different regulatory compliances that a personal care product must have on them.
All right, perfect. Matt, thank you very much for being here today and talking to us about how we can use Agile to develop consumer goods. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
And that was our discussion with Matt Priest on the topic of using agile methods for consumer goods development. That's it for today. Thank you very much for listening. As always, you can find us on the web at pm-podcast.com. If you are a project manager who wants to become a PMP, then the easiest way to do so is with our sister podcast, the Project Management Prepcast, and study for the exam by watching over 38 hours of video training from pmprepcast.com. Please send your emails to info@pm-podcast.com, and please, when you write, tell me where in the world you are writing from. And finally, we have this joke for you. The project manager walks into his boss's office and says, "Here is the bottom line budget needed for the success of the project." So the boss says, "What can you do with half the money?" The project manager answers, "I can fail." So the boss asks him, "Well, when can you get started?" To which the project manager replies, "I think I just did." Until next time.